No one can keep a secret forever. Pastor Michael Tabb and his young wife Marla are pillars of their religious community.
Marla and Michael Tabb seemed like the all-American couple.
They looked like they had everything going for them.
But a shocking turn of events shatters their small-town dreams.
It was unstoppable anger that took place in that bedroom.
The absolute worst scene that I had ever been associated with.
As one unholy act soon reveals another and threatens to tear a community apart.
The killer was right there under everyone's nose the entire time.
There was only one perfect human being, and that was Jesus. Everyone has a demon.
Soon, every dirty little secret will be revealed. It's the summer of 2002, and Pastor Michael Tabb has just moved to Troop, Texas with his wife Marla to lead the town's devout Methodist congregation.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Troop is a very small little town. It's a religious town. It's a good town. Very, very little violence of any kind.
There's a lot of people that worship on a regular basis in Texas. I mean, it's just part of the foundation of Texans.
Michael has spent the past several years serving as a chaplain in the military and is looking forward to the challenge of leading a new flock.
Michael and Marla come into Troop, Texas, and they are leaving the Navy where they have done great work serving their country, and now they've decided to set their efforts in serving God and serving a community.
Michael and Marla have been married for 5 years. With one small child and another on the way, they are looking forward to putting their roots down in one place after years of moving around from base to base.
They looked like they were in love. They looked like they were a close-knit family. They looked like they were made for each other.
Raised in the Baptist church, Marla has a deep love for music, and she's eager to take over the choir at her husband's new congregation.
Marla was a very musically talented lady playing musical instruments, very interested in the choir. That was one of the things that she initiated, along with some of the congregation when they arrived. And I think she was excited about doing that.
She had dreams of being this typical pastor's wife and leading the choir on Sundays.
For the Tabbs, this is a particularly happy time. With a new congregation to lead and a new child on the way, it seems that God's plan for this pious and growing family is a generous one. But just 5 weeks after their new baby is born, all of their hopes for the future come crashing down. Pastor Michael Tabb returns home from visiting his parents in nearby Tyler, Texas.
Marla?
To find his wife bloody and motionless on their bedroom floor. He dials 911.
Send someone quickly, okay? Yes, she was up. I came in and the door was open, and I walked upstairs and I seen her, and it looked like she got beat with a bat or something.
But it's too late. Marla is pronounced dead at the scene.
Marla Tabb was murdered through blunt force trauma. It was a brutal crime scene. She was beaten to death.
I've been a funeral director or worked in a funeral home since I was 13 years old. It was the absolute worst scene that I had ever been associated with.
I've seen people murdered before, people killed in car wrecks and things, and this was a terrible scene, one of the worst that I've ever seen. And it did upset me, the thought that someone had done this to her and that no one deserves that to be the way their life ends.
Police find clear signs of a struggle, and something has been taken.
When you arrived home, did you notice if anything was missing?
Her jewelry box was on the dresser.
Michael Tabb reported a jewelry box of Marla's being missing.
Police quickly theorize that Marla's murder could be the result of a burglary gone wrong. Detectives scour the house for anything that could be the murder weapon and make a startling discovery.
There was an imprint on the pavement in the garage where the table leg was laying. There was dust around it. So the wounds of the head were consistent with that sharp edge of that table leg. Everything leads to the table leg.
But detectives find no sign of forced entry anywhere in the house. Is it possible Marla knew her killer and let them in?
According to Michael Tabb, it would be out of character for his wife Marla to open the door to a stranger.
In a community like Shroop, Texas, a very tight-knit community, it would be unusual to have a great many burglaries in the community. Everybody knows each other. People just don't wander in and out of this community. These are people that recognize everybody, and when there's someone in the community they don't recognize, everyone knows about it and they talk about it. So this would not be the type of community where you'd expect to see a lot of burglaries.
Because there was no forced entry, it led us to believe that she knew her killer. And you work your way out, the people closest to her, and then you work out from there.
The little town of Troop is now facing its first homicide in 5 years, and so far, investigators don't have a single lead on the killer. Who would want to harm this pastor's wife, and why? When someone is killed, police must always look at the spouse.
Michael gave police his schedule for that day. He said he was out running errands, he went to a restaurant. He said he wasn't home at the time when this attack occurred. Nothing stood out to them. It seemed sensible.
I would say if you line 12 people up and ask a detective to pick out a killer in those 12 people, Michael Tabb would have been one of the last individuals you would have picked out. Very nice-looking man, very well-spoken, very clean-cut, very well-dressed, very mild-mannered.
As word of the murder spreads through town, residents tell police they saw several suspicious-looking men in the neighborhood that day. But the details are frustratingly vague. They describe a man in a white t-shirt and jeans, a second man running down the street, a third parked on the street. It seems possible that any one of these men could have been involved in Marla's murder. But why would Marla have let a strange man into her home?
There are going to be witnesses at your crime scene that are going to say they saw strange individuals or they saw someone that didn't fit in the neighborhood, a car that didn't look like it should be there.
It's very important to track those people down because you don't know during the initial investigation if they had any involvement or maybe they saw something.
Meanwhile, police begin questioning the Tabb's family and friends, looking for leads.
Marla had mentioned to a friend that one of the movers was acting strange. She was uncomfortable, I believe was the word she used.
When we found out that she had called the moving and storage people and told them she didn't like the guys that moved her, Therefore, you've got to check each one of these individuals out, find out where they were at the time of the murder.
Police don't know which mover made Marla uncomfortable, but they wonder if he could be one of the suspicious men spotted in the neighborhood. If so, could he have known about Marla's jewelry box and decided it was worth killing for? Or was something even more sinister at play in this quiet East Texas community?
Troop is a place where everyone kind of knows everyone else's business.
Whether you're an upstanding citizen or whether you're a criminal, everybody knows everybody. It is hard to keep a secret.
The investigation takes a turn toward the unlikeliest of places. As the secrets that swirl around this seemingly perfect couple begin to unravel.
Anyone can become a murderer. I know there's people that are going to be watching this program tonight that they say, oh, no, that could never happen to me. Yes, it can. You just haven't been pushed that far.
Mere weeks after moving his family to a quiet East Texas town, Pastor Michael Tabb comes home to find his wife beaten to death in their bedroom. Her jewelry box stolen. And there's no sign of forced entry. That suggests she let her killer in willingly.
We wanted to find out who had been in the house most recently.
Where can I put this for you, ma'am?
That goes in the kitchen, please.
And one of her friends says that the movers made her uncomfortable.
Detectives track down the movers.
We went and interviewed all the movers. One of the individuals had been in jail in the period of time that this murder took place. So we eliminated that individual, and then the others were accounted for during that period of time.
I was working the job.
The movers were tracked down, and they had alibis for the time that the murder could have happened.
I had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
With the movers ruled out, detectives start comparing the descriptions of the suspicious men seen in the neighborhood that day to mugshots of known criminals. But with so many potential suspects, it's a daunting task.
It's very difficult to follow some of these things up. Unless you have a license plate number, you have a description of an individual that you can actually find. The individual they identified as being in the neighborhood had a white t-shirt on. Well, good luck in finding that individual to interview. You're at the mercy of the circumstances.
Police are at a standstill when they get a key piece of information about Marla's missing jewelry box.
She had given it to her mother when they moved from North Carolina, and her mother still had it. So it, in fact, was not missing.
Her jewelry box is not missing. It's right here. She gave it to me weeks ago. I could see it. No, I have all her jewels.
That means it's not a robbery.
This is a really critical fact because it rules out robbery and burglary as a motive. But it also becomes clear that whoever murdered Marla just wanted her dead.
But who would want the pastor's wife dead, and why?
When authorities realized this wasn't a robbery, they had to take a closer look at Marla herself. Did Marla have someone who was angry with her?
The Tabbs had just moved to town a few months earlier. It hardly seems like enough time for her to make enemies.
What was she like as a person?
Well,
During the course of the investigation, you interview a lot of people, the acquaintances, the friends, in this particular case, the congregation members.
She wasn't really what we were looking for in a pastor's wife.
Authorities began to uncover that she wasn't the typical pastor's wife.
to be honest, no one really liked her.
On the surface, Marla Tabb seemed to be the quintessential pastor's wife. But detectives soon discover that her perfect facade was hiding a short temper and a fiery personality that didn't sit well with many in troop.
Do you hear yourselves? Are you tone deaf?
Day one, Marla was just sort of agitating to some of the people in the community.
We are singing for the Lord.
I think that she rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Turns out, on her very first day in their new house, Marla Tabb got into a fight with the church's welcoming committee.
This is what you guys call clean? What's wrong with this community? These are your standards?
They wanted to clean the carpets, paint the walls, make the place feel like home for their new pastor.
You've missed a whole spot. There's streaks all over the floor.
Marla was furious. The carpets weren't cleaned professionally. The walls were not the colors she wanted. And hell hath no fury like a woman who doesn't get to decorate the way she wants to.
I don't want to live in a house with these colors. I can't. I can't.
We were replacing light fixtures and fans, cleaning the bathroom, certainly cleaning everything, repainting rooms we thought needed to be repainted, but she pretty much let us know that none of it met her standards.
This place is so dirty.
Mrs. Cottle was there cleaning on her hands and knees, cleaning the baseboards. And Marla said, I want a professional doing this. I want a professional cleaning this house.
Honestly, you should just hire professionals. It's a waste of your time.
You can get away with that someplace else maybe, but not in Troop, Texas.
Just stop.
And this frosty first encounter was just the tip of the iceberg.
Pathetic.
Yeah.
Many church members tell police that Marla was simply rude when they came to extend some good old Southern hospitality.
Hi. How are you?
It seems that when people brought over food, Marla wouldn't even let them in the door.
I was in the middle of something, so we'll have to do this another time.
Yeah, well, I'm just across the street. Let me know if you...
We got off on the wrong foot from the beginning. We were uncomfortable.
These outsiders come in that you know nothing about. And then one of them starts making demands.
This is a disgrace.
There were some people that took more exception to it than others.
You were worthless.
She was very standoffish to everyone, did not participate in the services, very seldom ever showed up at anything.
I didn't like the woman.
As stories of Marla's bad behavior begin to pile
All
up,
the same level of depressing.
detectives realize that the church members themselves might be prime suspects in her murder.
You have to consider everyone, including the parishioners. And you'd think, oh no, surely not. Yes, you have to look at them.
As unlikely as it seems, it jibes with the evidence.
Marla opening the door for a stranger, knowing what I know about Marla Tabb, highly unlikely. Had they identified themselves perhaps as a member of the congregation that she knew? Yes.
But could it really be possible for one of these devout believers to kill the pastor's wife? A new clue comes to light, suggesting that Marla's killer may have had their own way into the house. And the secrets start tumbling out.
As an investigator, you're always wondering what secrets people have or what they're hiding. Those are your answers to the puzzle, to finding out what happened to a victim.
Marla Tabb, a young mother and wife of the local pastor, has been found beaten to death in her own bedroom. But as detectives discover, not too many townsfolk are mourning the loss.
Just hire professionals. You guys are terrible.
She had pretty much drew the line in the sand when she walked in as to her type of personality,
This is unacceptable. I can't live in here.
which was abrasive and confrontational and uncaring towards the other people.
We've been doing this for hours. Are you tone deaf?
She came in and set some standards that the church had some difficulty making. So I think that put her to some extent in a difficult relationship with the church.
Still, it was hard to imagine that any God-fearing member of the church would kill her. no matter how difficult she was. But then investigators make an interesting discovery. Since the church owns the property, it has keys to the Tabb's house. And many people in the congregation have access to them.
Marla was not happy about people having keys to her home. She didn't want anybody coming over unannounced or uninvited. She was not happy about that at all.
Who would be? But after Marla's outburst with the welcoming committee,
Come on, this is crap.
church members grew increasingly concerned about what she might do to the church's house. Some began stopping by unannounced.
There's no forced entry. Several people have keys to the pastor's house, which is not uncommon because you have pastors come and go.
The keys to the Tabb's house were kept in the church office and could have easily been snatched by anyone. Could one of the church members have taken them and let themselves into the house? Or perhaps someone gave a key to one of the suspicious men seen in the neighborhood that day and paid them to commit murder.
It's a very real possibility that the keys just could have ended up in the hands of somebody who shouldn't have had them and wanted to take advantage of a situation.
Is there a killer lurking inside this church? Investigators take a hard look at the congregation. But no one has a criminal record. There's also no evidence putting anyone at the pastor's house at the time of the murder. And police can't find any connections between a member of the church and a known criminal.
This was a tiny town where family, faith, religion, God meant everything. This is not the town of rap sheets, mugshots, fingerprints, and criminal records.
Just when the case seems to be back at square one, some surprise witnesses come forward.
You were late for dinner. You are late now. 20 minutes ago.
Staff from Marla's OBGYN's office telephone police and reveal some shocking information on the Tabbs.
Hi. I think I might have some information about the Tabbs murder.
She was yelling at him more than the other way around.
It looked like it could have gotten violent at any time.
Oh, you think this is bad?
In a small town, it's hard to keep secrets from your neighbors. It's hard to keep secrets from the community, especially when they're major problems.
Marla was belittling Michael in front of the staff.
What?
The doctor will see you guys soon.
Thank you.
According to her doctor, she browbeat him constantly in public, talked down to him, humiliated him.
20 minutes late doesn't count as being here.
I have the wrong time written down. I apologize.
Well, why?
I've
Where
already
is your
apologized.
head?
So can we just move?
She apparently had a habit of yelling at him and belittling him in public.
She was pretty feisty.
You know what? Why don't you just be a man? Man up. Once.
And bossy, she rode him pretty good.
Who knows how long that had been going on?
Michael may have held his tongue, but the staff could tell he was enraged by his wife's taunts. Had the beloved pastor finally snapped? And could he somehow be involved in his wife's demise?
You look for leads, you look for other reasons. You don't want it to be the husband, you want it to be somebody else.
The pastor even provided police with an alibi for the time of the crime.
He was quite forthcoming. He said he was running errands, and he said he went to a restaurant and had no problem talking to cops.
But with little else to go on, detectives do a little digging to make sure the good pastor isn't hiding any dirty little secrets. There's trouble lurking in Troop, Texas, and it's more sinister than anyone could have imagined.
When those secrets are demons, you can't hide those.
With no solid leads in the murder of Marla Tabb, investigators take a second look at her husband, Michael. The good pastor has a solid alibi for the time of his wife's death, but when detectives start digging, they are surprised to find out that Michael Tabb is not your typical man of God.
Preachers in the East Texas area are all respected. They're counselors for their public. It's not just giving a speech on Sundays and Wednesday nights. The neighborhood looks to that preacher to be part of the neighborhood. In some cases, the preacher is the neighborhood, but you have to earn that respect. And in his case, he was not earning respect as a preacher.
If you reach out for God, He will reach back.
He just wasn't a preacher, as we think one should be.
Michael Tabb has only been in town a few months, but church members say he's been shirking his responsibilities since day one.
I don't believe we were happy at all with that he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't trying to meet with any of us or outside of his absolute obligation that he had to do.
Not only has he stood up his congregation on several occasions, he's never made it a point to visit with parishioners in their homes or stand by them in their time of need.
I can't get over there to the hospital this week. I can make it next week.
We had to talk to him about he needed to do this or he needed to do that, different things that he needed, such as visiting those who are sick and or perhaps in the hospital.
I can't do it today. I can do it next week, I promise. I can get over to the hospital.
Michael Tabb was very distant. The pastors that I have known are very close. They're very involved with people, particularly when people have issues, personal issues, addictive issues and whatnot. They get very involved in that.
We can reschedule. Dear friends, don't be afraid of those who want to kill you.
And then there were the pastor's dark fire and brimstone sermons, unusual topics for a Methodist pastor.
Fear. Fear God, who has the power to kill people and then to throw them into hell.
There was a couple of sermons we thought were maybe, they did seem strange.
The time is coming when everything will be revealed. All that is secret will be made public.
Michael's sermons did not fit in Troop, Texas, and I'm not really sure where they would fit. I think they were looking for a preacher with an upbeat message and a little humor, but he never had that.
Whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in the light, and whatever you have whispered behind closed doors will be shouted from the housetops for all to hear.
While none of this is criminal, it's certainly unusual for a leader of the local church. Detectives ask Marla's family if the pastor's odd behavior from the pulpit is part of a larger pattern.
Tell me about your daughter's husband.
Well, he's not who you think he is.
In what way?
He's got a lot of secrets.
From the outside, it appeared that they were the perfect family. But when you dug deeper and talked to people that were close to him, there's some very deep, dark secrets.
The family says Michael is not an upstanding pastor at all. And while he doesn't seem the murderous type, they're certain that this man of God has demons.
Marla and her family thought Michael had a drinking problem.
Michael Tabb was fighting alcoholism. I think he was fighting a lot of inner demons, and he couldn't hide them constantly, especially from his wife, who lives with him 24/7.
The family tells detectives that Michael is also prone to bouts of depression and has even spoken of suicide. According to Marla's sister, that's not the half of it.
Your sister found a phone number in Michael's pocket.
She told me she found on a piece of paper a phone number in his pocket, so she looked into it and turned out to be an escort service.
And of course, immediately she gets very upset because she's suspicious of him already. And he convinced her, or tried to convince her, that that was someone he was counseling.
I found this number in your coat pocket. The number for an escort service.
I'm sorry, Marla. I don't know what else to do or tell you.
You're disgusting.
But it wasn't just the number in his pocket that caused concern. Michael would disappear on a bender for days at a time, spending hundreds of dollars the family couldn't afford to lose.
He was a different type of alcoholic. We think of alcoholics as being drunk every day. Not so. There are individuals who can go weeks without a drink, and then all of a sudden they get the urge to go get a hotel room and or go off by themselves and get 2 or 3 cases of beer and stay drunk for 2 and 3 and 4 days at a time. And then they come back into society and fit right back in again. And that was Michael Tabb.
Michael was binge drinking and staying in hotels overnight, leaving his family. Then, of course, we probed more to find out more about it. So we most definitely thought he was keeping more secrets.
So police begin following the pastor around to see what the widower is really up to. And they discover this man of God has been keeping some sinful secrets.
Michael had a very interesting way with grieving over his wife's passing. Instead of being with the family and crying like the rest of them, instead, he spent some time at a strip joint and was holed up several days in a hotel room with who knows who. Turns out the pastor had some impure thoughts and acted on them quite frequently.
He was in a strip club, drinking. He wasn't in there with a Bible trying to save souls. He was in there to watch the strippers.
That's pretty dynamic. A month after your wife's been murdered. That's pretty dynamic. You're at a strip club drinking beer.
Police now know that Michael has been hiding a whole lot of sinful behavior from his community. And they wonder if Marla found out about his indiscretions and threatened to expose him, would keeping that secret be worth killing for?
How can you be so stupid? Don't you dare embarrass me in this town.
A pastor's reputation within the church is 100% of his job. If he loses his reputation, then he has no standing in the church. So to lose that would be the equivalent of losing your job.
I think that the secrets that Marla knew obviously threatened his entire being. It threatened his job occupation. It threatened everything with him because she knew too much.
But the only thing police have evidence of is that Pastor Michael Tabb is not following his own moral code. And it's quite a leap from strip clubs to murder.
While Michael may have had a motive to kill Marla, there was a whole congregation of suspects. A whole bunch of people there had access to that house.
The murder weapon is still missing. But police find something else just as damning. The victim's blood in places it shouldn't be.
Even if the murder weapon has been disposed of, a crime scene can carry forensic evidence.
But I tell you whom to fear. Fear God.
Small-town pastor Michael Tabb has been hiding some grave sins from his family, his community, and even from the detectives investigating his wife Marla's murder. But bad behavior doesn't make him a murderer. And police have no evidence tying him to the crime.
If you don't have any physical evidence, you don't have a case. Normally, you've got to have physical evidence to show.
But with no other leads in the case, detectives must look harder at this pastor and see if he could have had a hand in his wife's murder.
They really need to go back and look at Michael Tabb as a possible suspect.
We're gonna need you to take us through the timeline of the day that your wife died.
Haven't we already gone through this?
Police bring Pastor Tabb back in for questioning.
I left around 5:30.
He sticks to his story about the night of the crime.
I picked up some gardening supplies.
But it all seems much less convincing the second time around.
Authorities originally believed him because he was so forthcoming with what he did that day. But then all of a sudden, some things didn't add up.
Does anyone verify any of these errands you were at?
Can't prove where I was every second of my life.
The night of the crime, the timeline of the pastor's alibi seemed to add up. But no witness can confirm it, which means the pastor actually could have had the opportunity to kill his wife after all. His alibi falling apart, Michael Tabb is quickly becoming the prime suspect in his wife's murder. But detectives still need physical evidence tying him to the crime. They wonder if there's something they overlooked and make a closer examination of the crime scene.
When detectives run out of leads and a case starts to go cold, they often go back to the crime scene to try to determine whether they've missed something. Even if the murder weapon has been disposed of, a crime scene can carry forensic evidence.
And detectives don't have to look any further than the Tabb's own garage.
We wanted to look at Michael's vehicle. And in doing so, in the bed of the truck, which was very dusty and dirty, as you would expect any vehicle to be, there was a specific area that was clean.
In Texas, and a pickup truck's down there, we have a lot of dust in Texas. There's a lot of pollen, there's leaves blowing. There's going to be debris in the back end of a pickup truck. And one spot of his was perfectly clean. Well, hello. We know there's a problem here. And sure enough, we found blood.
We didn't know whose blood, so we sent it off to be tested to see if we could get a DNA profile. And we did. And it was Marla's.
So, how did her blood get in the back of his truck? That's the question you have to ask yourself, and it becomes pretty obvious how that got there.
But police don't stop with the blood in the truck. They continue their search and quickly find more of Marla's blood.
When people commit a heat of passion crime, they're not thinking logically.
Don't you dare cross me!
And then they're panicked and trying to cover up. He did change his clothes, obviously, after the murder, but he didn't change his shoes. And we found one of her hairs from her head in the shoe. We found blood in the shoe eyelets.
Walking in a crime scene in and of itself to check to see what happened is not going to cause you to get blood and brain matter on the top of your shoes. And how does he explain in court that I got blood or brain matter on the top of my shoes and the shoelaces and in the shoelace inlets simply walking into that crime scene? Is the jury going to buy that? I don't think so. So there's another nail in the coffin, as it were.
The blood in the back of the truck matched the blood in the shoe outlets, and those two matched Marla's blood. So we had him.
Pastor Michael Tabb killed his wife Marla in cold blood. But what could possibly have pushed this man of God to commit murder?
We found out during our investigation that there was a lot of tension in that marriage.
You're not even listening to me. You don't even care.
And that Michael felt that Marla had caused him a lot of grief with the new church in True.
I told you I need to help these people.
She was not happy in the marriage.
In my opinion, Marla was very hard to please.
I'm living in this dump.
Marla was not a happy camper. Marla didn't like the environment she was living in.
Why would you think I would even want to move here? You are such a letdown.
Marla had made it clear to her husband that she wanted out of Troop. She didn't like the people and wanted to start a new life somewhere else. But Michael refused.
It was almost like dealing with a person who had always had their way on everything they wanted. And they could not understand that some things were just not achievable.
I'm sorry.
You're sorry.
When Marla discovered Michael was spending time with strippers and hookers, she knew she had leverage.
You're not a pastor. You are disgusting.
Police theorized that when Marla threatened to expose his secrets, Michael knew she wasn't bluffing.
I'm not gonna tell anybody anything. Do you understand me? I protect my family.
I think most people are worried about how they look on the outside as opposed to how they really are. And Michael Tabb was definitely one of those. He wanted to be that perfect pastor, perfect husband, and he eliminated the threat.
Michael Tabb was unraveling. His perception of himself was unraveling rapidly, I think.
Pastor Michael Tabb beat his wife Marla to death in their bedroom. He did it to keep his dirty little secrets hidden. But in the end, all of his sins were revealed.
It's almost impossible to deny forensic evidence. In this case, the forensic evidence pointed directly at Michael.
Michael Tabb pleads guilty to murder and is sentenced to 55 years in prison. This man of God turned his back on his wife, his community, and his church in order to keep his sins from coming out.
He was living in a world that was about to become a train wreck, regardless. Whether he killed her or he didn't kill her, it was going to be a train wreck for him because he could not continue to be a pastor and live the lifestyle he was living.
The killer was right there under everyone's nose the entire time. Who would have thought that the pastor, the chaplain in the Navy, and who came there with his lovely family was capable of a horrific murder?
People are willing to go to any length to protect their secrets, especially if it means losing your livelihood, if it comes to losing your family, if it comes to losing your relationship. I think they'll go to any length to protect those secrets.
It was unstoppable anger that took place in that bedroom. It was a very tragic thing that happened. There were lives lost and lives destroyed, and they'll never be the same again.
There was only one perfect human being, and that was Jesus. Everyone has a demon.